Well, good morning, everybody. This is Gulf Harbour Radio, ZFH286, Patricia and David, and I'm rushing a bit here this morning. My alarm didn't go off because I didn't bring my phone into the bedroom, and of course, David is away busy doing weather. He gets up a lot earlier than I do. So we have a lovely morning again here, and it is only about 10% cloud on the horizon, 18 degrees. It's been 18 all night pretty much. The bar is 1024.5 and steady, and we have 3 knots from the northeast. And I see Amazing Grace got up to Marsden there, waiting for the window. It still seems to be a window sale on Monday, so that's good for you all, those that are rushing to get through the last minute jobs. So that's excellent, and those people that were stopping at Minerva all seem to have got there. I was just looking at Mezzaluna on Cruiser Satnet there at North Minerva. It's pretty gusty there, southeast 15, gusting 23, but only a 10 centimetre wave, so that sounds good. 10 centimetre, I wonder how they managed that. Maybe they got out with the calipers. Yep, the reports in from other people where we've got Messatroy, and I want to cover that in a minute because he's going to stop at Anatom on that trip there at 2048 and 170 almost at the moment. Wind from the east-southeast 10 to 15. Overcast, sounds pretty good, 1011. Actually, I might as well cover that now.
Should be there.
His orbit there. They put in their pre-notification for Vanuatu to stop there and got an email back about needing to be there by the 13th of May. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe they're pulling out the customs fellow from there. Not sure. They do seem to change things in Anisham year by year and almost month by month. But he was advised that there would be a 10,000 Batu charge. Sounds horrific, but that is, it's $90 US and $136 New Zealand for those that are going there. So I suppose it's not too bad, really, compared with going into Australia. Get ready for that one, Diego. But it just depends on whether the cruise ships are going in or not, whether they have people there. So it seems that getting there is not a problem, and he'll certainly be there by the 13th of May, unless they go backwards. But the charge will be, by the look of it, 10,000 Batu. And I will try and get more information on that today, Diego. But be prepared for that one. There was, in the past, there was no way of paying that there if you're using cards. But I think that has all changed now, and they are certainly in the modern world, and I think you can get your SIM card and everything down there in Anisham now. So it's all part of modern world communications. So there's no problem with taking your money, in fact. So there you have it. All right, and I'm just looking through yet at the moment. Kuperi are in South Minerva, and still need to be introduced to the square bracket weather. But anyway, it's not as strong in South Minerva, the wind, 16 knots from the southeast and overcast. Usually it's a bit more bumpy in South Minerva than it is in North Minerva, but they haven't commented on the swell there, so it can't be too bad there. All right, is there anybody wanting to check in with Gulf Harbour Radio? And I'm just going to put the microphone down, because I see my computer says we're offline, but I need to have a look at that. All right, hopefully we are online now. It's funny, it says one thing, but it's making some red marks here, so I'm not quite sure what's going on. Anyway, we are actually talking to you, and it is a radio net, so I shall concentrate on that. Talking about people on passage, I thought you might be interested. We started talking the other day amongst ourselves here about how old some single-handers are. And we have at the moment Jan on Narida. She's a single-handed lady, who is doing non-stop around the world. She just likes sailing. And in fact, she's between Tasmania and New Zealand at the moment. She's going around the bottom of Stewart Island, and then she will head across. She's around 45 degrees, I think it is at the moment, and south, and then she'll head up sort of in the area of the longitude of the Marquesas and sort of head up that way, going back to Vancouver. But Jan is 76 and still going strong. In fact, she's sailing around with no mainsail because something went wrong with it in the Atlantic, and since then she has not had a mainsail. So she's actually an amazing lady. And of course, the other one that's out there between New Zealand and Australia at the moment is Suzanne. Now, she is not that old, but her husband is, and he's just done the round the world race, and he has arrived back in the UK. I think he's German, and he is now the oldest person to have done that. I can't give it to you exactly, but he is in his mid-70s, and he is older than Sir Robin John Knox Jones, who was. I'm just going to turn the heater off. Hang on. Boy, we have a bit of a battle here. It just gets too hot for me. David should actually put in a big pair of Ugg boots on, and a jersey might help. But anyway, so he has arrived, and he is now the oldest person to have circumnavigated, but that will go down when Jan arrives. So anyway, the reason for mentioning her is that she and David have been in discussion, and I thought I would read you what David commented to her about models, because Jan was talking about the difference between ECMWF and GFS, and I know that many of you get your Bribs, and most of you look at GFS, which seems to work rather well here in the South Pacific. But I'll read you this because it is quite interesting. He says, yes, there is an ongoing debate of GFS versus ECMWF. Models are rated with a skills score, that's a difficult one, a skills score, and yes, EC does slightly better than GFS. But NOAA has just released a new version of GFS called FV3-GFS. Now, what does better mean? These are global models, and without a doubt, one does better than the other for certain geographic areas and for certain parameters. An example would be rain. Rain to me is important as it relates to a front. More rain usually means a more vigorous front. But who is to say which model predicts this feature better? Actually, you are the judge, and this means you everywhere out there in the water. If you write down the model data and on the date write the actuals, then you will see how the model is doing. Also, when you get your Bribs, make sure you get the first day's output. This is the day that the actual conditions should agree with the model. And if the model is wrong, more than likely the rest of the run will be in error too. And so it goes on. But I just thought that would be interesting for you just to have a think about, because we sort of take these models no matter where you get them from, and it really is worthwhile thinking about how they're put together and what reliability they have. Did you want to add in? No, you don't want to add anything. I'll never get the microphone. Thank you. I'll just go on to a bit of news here, and he can cover that when he gets the microphone. Just going back quickly through the news, there's actually not an awful lot, although Mr. Trump evidently lost $1 billion in his business dealings between 1985 and 1994. So, this fact that he's a great businessman and is now running the country, perhaps one could be a little bit skeptical about that. His losses were mainly in casinos, hotels, and retail space he sold in apartments. So he's evidently lost more money than nearly any other individual American taxpayer. I'm not sure that that's a record that he really wants to have, remembering him in the years to come. But anyway, okay, and news for New Zealanders. The OCR was lowered yesterday to 1.5%. So that's the lowest it has been. It caused a drop in our exchange rate. So anyone that's still in the country and needs to pay their bill and has US dollars, now would be a really good time to pay it, because the New Zealand dollar now only gets you 0.6589 American. So you'll get an awful lot of New Zealand dollars for your money. And in fact, just going back to that Vanuatu example, you would pay $136 to enter an eSIM and $90 US. So it's a good time to pay any bills if you've got US dollars. Measles this was to remind me to warn you about the islands. Of course, they don't have very much in the way of vaccination schemes going on in the islands. Measles are getting to be quite significantly serious in America and in New Zealand, particularly in Northland, and they're looking at banning those that are not immunised from schools, but it's a bit of a legal issue here. It's just a caution to not do too much handling of kids. You know, everyone wants to shake hands in the islands. And one time I went into a school to give a talk. It was in Leafu, actually, in New Caledonia. And my gift for that was glandular fever, which is still in my body. So it does pay to always have one of those little containers of hand sanitizers with you, or wash your hands on the way back to the boat before you touch anything, just in the salt water. But you do be careful, because it looks like measles, and measles can be quite serious. Not as a kid usually, but it can be serious in adults. So do take care with the lack of hygiene. You just won't see people washing hands in the islands, so it does pay to do the job for them. Talking about Kiwis, back to that, Kiwis drink 1,100 drinks a year. This is a glass of wine or a serving of beer, which I think is 330 mils or whatever. This average is evidently much, much higher than the global average, and this exacts a toll in cancer and other health issues. So here we have, you can't have fatty foods and cholesterol, and you can't smoke, and now you can't even drink. So there you have it. But I don't think, I must work out what 1,100, that's more than one a day for sure. So I think we're quite safe there. Not much else to report. I'm just having a scan through the streaming, which is on. Thank you very much for letting me know, folks. There's, where are we? It looks like pretty decent. A lot of people in Opua. Russell, Vunda, good morning to Eye Candy up there, and David up there on Anahata. Actually, that reminds me, if you folk have blog sites, let me know what they are. Every now and again I love to look through. Some of you take the most amazing photos, so it's rather nice to sit here and look at the lovely photos from out there in the tropical places, particularly when it gets to about July, when we're not feeling all that pleasant down here in chilly New Zealand. That's about it. I don't think there's anything else I want to talk about this morning. Iran, unfortunately, is pulling out of the nuclear deal, or America did a while ago with Iran, and that's starting to ramp up a lot of pressure in the Middle East. But that was to be expected. It's been building up for quite some time, so that's back on the cards again, and America wants another ban on Iranian oil. So that, well, I'm not sure. No more comment on that one. I think it's probably easier to go to the weather. It's David.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. And I don't have a whole lot to cover today. But I do want to mention, since Patricia was talking about models, GFS, and EC, and so forth and so on, usually I say this every season, particularly for the new people, when you do get your model runs. Attempt to get the 00 Zulu or the 1200 Zulu, 12 Zulu, as opposed to the 06 or the 18. And the reason for that is, well, the 00 and the 12 are generally more accurate. The reason they're more accurate is those two are initialized by actual conditions. So in other words, the balloon launches, the satellite data, et cetera, those items that are giving us the basic conditions to do the initialization, that's all real information. Whereas the 06 and the 1800, it's the model that's making that data up, and all they're doing. So, what would you rather have, the real information or what the model thinks is going to happen? So, anyway, try to do that when you're getting a group 00 or 1200. And the other thing I want to mention on models, so far we haven't had too many complaints about accuracy on what they see, but generally every year people are letting us know how upset they are with their models. You have to realize, please, that a model is just an idea. It's based on incomplete data, and it's using formulas of the atmosphere that are not fully understood. So there is no gospel here. You can use them for up to 5 days, maybe 6 days, but after that, well, they're better than a guess, but don't bank on the information. So in other words, don't put everything that you've got into what the model has to say. There are a lot of other things out there that you can look at, and also common sense. So that's it on models. We could do sessions on models. There are so many models out there to look at that it actually gets confusing, particularly for new people. There's got to be, I look at 6 to 8 different models, but there are more, and it gets out of hand, really. So the best thing to do is to pick just 2 models that you look at. We don't give advice, but I think a good idea would be to certainly get GFS and the ECMWF. You can't go wrong if you stick with those two, regardless of what anybody else says. Some think that they've got a model that's better than anything since sliced bread, but don't really believe it. Those are the two. I'm not going to go into this anymore, but New Zealand, as an example, will use GFS as a base model, and then they'll use some of their own modeling to take into account for the geography of the country, and that is supposedly making their forecast a little bit more accurate by doing that. So they take a base global model, and then they use what's called a mesoscale model in combination with that. Okay, well, so far the atmosphere is acting pretty much as we had forecast yesterday. The high center by lunch will have moved east. It's going to be roughly near 40 south and 173 west, having crossed the date line late yesterday, last night sometime. The central pressure is still pretty strong, will be pretty strong, estimated to be about 1031, 1031 millibar. Now the Tasman depression that we've been talking about is progressing toward New Zealand. The first frontal band has actually touched the South Island, and it extends to about 25 south and 162 east. So by tonight, the front is almost going to be touching the North Island. By lunch Friday, that next depression is going to lie just east of Tasmania. Now, this is not the depression that I just mentioned that's about on us. This is another one. So this is the second depression. That'll be just east of Tasmania. Now, our little tropical disturbance up there is forecast to lie about 15 south and 161 east. That's 15 and 161. And it should have 2 cyclonic isobars by then. This is lunch tomorrow. Lunch on Saturday has the Tasman low center to be about midway across. It does look like back to the disturbance, it looks like we may have a tropical cyclone out of this. I say may in quotes. The prognosis is for 4 circular isobars with the center at that point near 16 south and 159 east, 159 east. And the pressure estimated to be 988. But there is no name yet for this, and there may not be. This could very well fizzle as it meanders around up there. The shear is still fairly low, so there's really nothing tearing it apart. But the other things that are necessary to develop the system are just not really fired up yet. So we'll hope that it does fizzle. We don't need that. Now, our old high center looks like football by then. Its center is going to be near 155 west, south of French Polynesia, and its ridge is actually pushing up toward Fiji. Maybe it looks more like a banana, I don't know, but it's elongated. Usually when they elongate, they break and another center forms. So we'll talk about that maybe tomorrow. Now by Monday, the all-important Monday, the next high is going to enter the Tasman. And it's this high that's going to provide the upcoming window, such as it is. It's not a slow mover. The average speed, by the way, of highs is about 21 knots. Some are much faster, and some are extremely slow to the point where they're stationary, and some even regress. They actually go the other way. They head west a little bit. But this one is not fast, but it's not slow either. In addition to all of this, GFS is moving a serious depression to just south of the South Island the following Saturday and Sunday time frame. Not this one coming up, this Saturday and Sunday, but a week from now. This is going to put northerly winds on the run line to New Caledonia or Vanuatu. So even if this does happen, and again, that's a week off, so this can change, the Monday departure yachts should have made it in by then, either Anatom, Nisham, Anatom, same thing, or New Caledonia. You should certainly be able to do it in that time frame. Well, this is all in the iffy basket at the moment because it is pretty far out, but we'll be looking at it for you. Now, the frontal band from this should be over New Zealand on Saturday of the following week, and New Cal late on Sunday or Monday. So that's what the prog is on 2 of the models anyhow. Now, the next high in the bight of Australia is also a mountain of air. It's forecast to be 1038 millibar, 1038. It's a big mountain, all right, if the progs are right. All of our highs, in fact, have been quite strong this season. I think we talked about that yesterday. Also, winds near the equator have been basically easterlies, as they have been for the last 15, 16 months. And that supports neutral ENSO. It's when the winds start becoming westerlies and maintaining that direction is when we start thinking about El Nino. And it's that wind, you see, that's pushing the water east. So without that wind pushing the water in a different direction, it's going to continue to head west. And that, of course, supports La Nina, or neutral. Now, up in the tropics, we've got a trough that runs from this tropical disturbance to Vanuatu. The other trough runs in an arc a little bit east of Vanuatu, goes up to Rotuma, then Samoa, and then it goes on to the southern Cooks. And back down here in the subtropics, the frontal band approaching New Zealand, the first one here, extends to Norfolk Island at the moment. And the next trough that's in the Tasman is running to Lord Howe, and then it goes on to Hervey Bay. So there's a lot of activity in the Tasman. And the 2 yachts that we have that are meandering around in there are going to be experiencing this pretty shortly. Now, The forecast for Sierra Brett, for those of you that are chomping to go, and hopefully you are getting this information, and I am just reiterating what you've already seen, but it calls for northerly 20 knots on Saturday, rising Sunday to northerly 30. But late on Sunday, we'll see a shift to westerly 20. Now, expect a fairly moderate northerly swell. Sounds pretty obvious with that kind of wind on Sunday. The very first New Zealand front looks to be here tomorrow at around dinner time. It may come earlier, but the main axis is about that time. We'll have cloud and showers before that, but that's about the axis time period for crossing the area. The main front over Opua, which follows this one, this is the second one, will cross probably about dinner on Sunday. And it's after that one goes by, that's when the wind is going to be shifting. And that's how you can tell that the main body of the front has gone by. When you get a big wind shift like this, generally the wind shifts go from either northwest to west to southwest. So rain or showers Friday, isolated showers on Saturday, rain on Sunday, much more later in the day due to the front. Then the front goes by, and then hopefully Monday, for those that are underway, we'll drop the mooring lines and off they go. So we'll see what happens. We'll give you a fill tomorrow on what the week is going to look like. Okay, a quick look now at Tonga. It shows a fair amount of cloud on satellite imagery, so you could expect occasional showers today with the wind southeast 15 to 20, and maybe some gusts getting up to about 25 from time to time, particularly if you've got a pretty large cloud that's over you. Moderate to rough seas, and still we've got the pesky southeast swell. It's pretty large. Now, got the same thing tomorrow. The barometer reading for Tonga Tapu this morning is 1014.1 millibar, 1014.1. And the relative humidity is increased to 85%, with 75 yesterday. Now for Fiji, satellite imagery shows actually quite a bit of cloud scattered about Fiji. Very heavy falls to the west of the Asawas and Viti Levu, but it's uncertain if that rain is actually going to move east to reach the main route. We'll have to see. Although it does look like a pretty good chance of scattered showers today. Now, Fiji Met's strong wind warning remains in place. They've had that now for 2 days. Expect east to southeast winds 20 to 25, and about the same thing tomorrow. And fairly large wind shadow areas are pretty evident on the lee side of Viti Levu. So those of you that are in Musket Cove or the southern Asawas, you won't see these winds, hopefully, with that wind shadow there. On to Vanuatu, where cloud from the disturbance continues to bother the group. There are breaks, of course, so there'll be areas of blue sky and so forth, but the showers, if any, are going to be scattered. The winds around lunch look to be easterlies, 20 to 25 knots, so a fair amount of wind, east-northeast up in the banks. Not much change in any of this for Friday. And lastly, over to New Caledonia, the cloud is rolling in from the northwest, quite broken in the southern lagoon, which is good. For our area down there, expect easterlies around 20 knots. And on Friday, still easterlies, but I think picking up a bit, 20 to 25 knots. So those of you that are arriving Friday, tomorrow, that's about what you can expect. Saturday arrivals look like east-northeast about 20, but a little bit lighter if you're coming in on Sunday. And some of you have already got there, so good. And that's all I've got. Any questions or comments, you can come now, and I'll pass this over to the chief.
And I didn't actually ask anyone if they wanted to check in. I think I'm so used to you being so quiet out there. But if anyone does want to ask a question, I'm just scanning through the streaming here, which we had a bit of trouble with this morning. We live in quite a primitive area here because yesterday we had friends in last evening and they were saying that they had really dirty water, and I noticed the water people were digging up the road yesterday. We have our own tank water, so we weren't affected, but we are being affected by a few hiccups in the internet service. And this month, I think I mentioned we are going to be having an upgrade, but it hasn't come yet. They've been very, very quiet on the subject, actually. So hopefully you're still getting live streaming. Any questions from anyone, please call. Nothing heard, and I will try and get final clarification on that, Diego, for you. But it would look like that you have to pay, and this seems to be quite normal, an extra charge to check in at Enisham to cover their customs costs, the cost of having someone sitting there. You are helping subsidise the cruise ship industry, but I will try and get some more information today. All right, if there's nothing more, we will go back to the newspaper, and boy, it looks like another glorious day for people getting their final boat jobs done. No excuses, is there? It's absolutely amazing. Cheers all, the frequency's yours. Now it's all quiet on the home front here.
We got to get people to start talking.
Yeah, perhaps we'll stop talking if they don't